As Boyd said, this is where I'm from. I spent a lot of time in Iowa, and I love coming back here. A lot of people are like, why do you like Iowa? You always like home. It's just a basic fact of life. So I'm going to try to get down to some brass tacks of some information as we go through this, and I'm going to basically talk about a few things. I want to talk about the ADT initiatives and our goals. So first I want to talk about trace performance measures that we have implemented and where we're at with that, and how that's changed. Then I want to talk about some of our work with electronic certificates and veterinary inspection. Then our IT initiatives, which are always difficult, and as Undersecretary Iboss said, if we don't put deadlines and timelines on that, we don't seem to make progress. And then finally, the ADT General Standards document, which many of you have in front of you, and you can take with you and read through that, because it kind of outlines some of the stuff we're doing. So first I want to talk about our timeline, and I want you to look at these dates. And that's in the document that you have also, but let's just go over it briefly. So first you see there that there's going to be a discontinuation of free middle ear tags at the end of this year. Okay, that's a pretty hard deadline. Now, we worked with the National Assembly of State Animal Health officials to kind of put this together about what would be workable. Not everybody is there. Not everybody feels like that's the way to do it, and there's a lot of concern about the fact that we haven't identified what the specifications of the technology is. We've chosen not to do that, to keep an open platform, because everything changes with time, and as technology moves forward, we don't want to be solidified into one and not be able to have the flexibility to move to the next. Now the concern is that if we go to electronic ID, that we'll eliminate that eventually in the low frequency, because that's out there. We've never said that. We are eliminating the metal ear tag because it's just not functional. We can't use it to retire tags. They're often hard to read. They're just a difficult system. It worked well in brucellosis, but it's not working well for us now. And to have a bookend system, you have to be able to retire those tags. So that's the first date. Then if you look down further, you'll be able to continue to purchase tags until next year, end of next year, 2020. Then a year after that, we'll no longer apply or sell the metal tags. So that's an important date too. So you got to start to think about what you're doing with your tagging system. By 2023, we'll be strictly RFID. Again, not specifying the technology of that RFID, but saying, based on what's in 9 CFR about what animals need to be tagged, they're going to have to be electronically tagged. So what we're doing here is basically defining our timeline. We're supporting the infrastructure to do this via cooperative agreements that we're doing both with the states and in the plants or the slaughter establishments. There's a cost share plan for the RFID tags, and I'm going to go over that in just a minute. We're working on IT modernization. What does that look like? How do we get there? And what we need to do for data sharing. We're improving our electronic eCVI system. I know the states are working on a system too. Many states are close to what they want to use. There'll be different systems out there. We're going to have ours. And then, as always, we have to do more outreach and education. We talked about that. How do you get to the guy that has the pitchfork in his hand every day? I think we reach out to a lot of the commodity groups. We feel like that information gets out there, but what we find is it really doesn't. And we have to do a better job, probably, of going out and doing it ourselves. And we talked about modules. I spent some time with different commodity groups here in Iowa this week, and it was interesting that they asked me questions that I know we distributed the information on. And I find that whenever I go to meetings, that just doesn't get down to the producer level. We got to do a better job of that. And we can't always rely on the commodity groups, and it's a large job for them to do anyway, so we shouldn't really depend on that. I want to talk a little bit about the trace performance measures. The trace performance measures are one of the 6 priority categories that the states, we ask the states to conduct in regards to their cooperative agreements, and we give them funds to show us how they're doing in tracing their animals. If we look at trace performance measures and look at this chart, we can see that through the years there's been great improvement. You look at those hours of how long on average it took people to trace tags. You can see that's gone down through the years to year 4 where we're at 47 versus, was that 490, which was just unmanageable. We did make some changes in how we implement these exercises. So based on the size of the animals in the state, the numbers of cattle, the states may do between 4 and 10 of these exercises a year. And that's where we send them tags, we ask them to trace them. We used to send them without any type of advanced information, which many states got busy, didn't have time to trace it. So to make it more realistic, we tell the states when we're sending the tag numbers and the trace performance measures, then they can treat it like a real outbreak, like they're looking for a diseased animal, and they take the time out and they can plan for it. So it's more realistic, and it also helps them in the measures. Many times we'd send these trace tests, and they'd be busy with many other things, and that drove the numbers up. So this is really a more realistic way of looking at it. I want to talk a little bit about electronic certificates of veterinary inspection. This is something that we've been working on, and the states have been working on, the state vets and other folks in private industry for some time. We want to expand the use of these. This is the future. We want everything to go electronic and digital eventually. So and we're using some of this technology at the border. It's one of our main priorities. So we want to be able to take that eCVI data and share it and adopt it and use our mobile information management system to scan documents, scan animals, produce a document, and make it electronically transferable not only to the point of receivership, but point of destination, but from the point of its implementation. If you add to that digital signature, we can do everything by computer, and mistakes with MEMS and transfer of data, it's pretty accurate, 99.9%. There's no more, we mislabeled a tag because of human error. These applications are important. We want to be able to message with the states and private systems. We want to have a web interface that's more friendly for people to use. And we want mobile applications of all the certificates so that we can get this done quickly. We are supporting this with the states, again, through our ADT Cooperative Agreement Funds to help them implement in advance the use of the eCVI and increase the volume of these type of electronic records. IT, I don't even like to talk about IT. It gives me vapors. That's what Lincoln used to say when he was in the Civil War. It gives me vapors. But in addition to the work on the eCVI's, we are incorporating and contracting and utilizing many folks to beef up our systems and make them better. Undersecretary Ibaugh has said, and he said it today, if you listen closely, he's not going to accept that, well, we're going to extend the deadline or the deadline slipped. So we have meetings with IT all the time, and I just look at them and say, you're going to tell Undersecretary Ibaugh that you didn't get this done. They don't like to hear that. So I'm hoping that we can keep them on task and we can move forward with what we need in these systems. Our MEM system is very important. Can't afford slippage in that. It's the centerpiece. Our VSPS system has to be updated, and we're pushing hard to move forward on these initiatives. I always got to look to make sure I'm on the right slide. I gave a talk the other day, and I was on the wrong slide the whole time. People were looking at me like, what's he talking about? A little bit on electronic records. The Animal Health Events Repository, we call it AHER, is an APHIS database that serves as a digital index to find where tag numbers are seen. Essentially, it's an index for finding source data for traceability. AHER will capture 5 key elements from state private databases. Those 5 elements are the date of the sighting, the date of the sighting, the event type, such as a health certificate, location, it may be where the producer's PIN or the PIN of the state, where the state PIN resorted for the tag, or where the PIN was issued. And also where the state where the sighting took place, and then the database where additional data can be found. We partnered with the states of Colorado and Michigan to pilot a data sharing and integration of these key elements for USA herds and AHER. So we've been working to make sure that our systems coordinate and work with other systems. Again, we provide cooperative agreement funding to the states to support information sharing between their systems and our system. APHIS has a contract in process, and as I spoke about before, for the mobile information management system for data collection and integration information between systems. So that's a system that we can use out in the field, and at its best, if it works, you scan animals at the site, transfer that data to a laptop or a phone, possibly, if this really starts to work. It creates a system that can then be transferred to an electronic certificate, then it can be digitally signed and sent to the destination and kept at the source. It's pretty impressive stuff, and that's really, other countries are doing this, why can't we get there? We got to get there. So, I'll move on. A little bit about electronic tags themselves. We're not choosing the source or the technology. You've heard that many times. We're making it possible for technology that's out there to be utilized and developed based on a set of standards that we're going to put forward. So we're not going to say you got to have low frequency, you got to have ultra high frequency, but it'll have to meet the standards for RFID that we set. Now, we've worked with the state animal health officials also to develop a cost share for RFID, which is something everybody's asked about. We want to support producers and veterinarians in the transition from metal tags to the use of RFID. So what the plan is, the proposal sits like this. VS will work with manufacturers to develop a discount code for a specific number of RFID tags per state. The states will define how to distribute and approve the use of the discount codes, similar to how they do the metal tags today for distribution and record keeping. USDA will provide 1/3 of the cost of these tags, and the state will pay for the other 2/3 of the cost. Now, you say, well, that's really not fair to the states, but the cost recovery has to be up to the state to get the final third from the producer or the veterinarian, however they distribute the tag. Now, we're not going to leave the states high and dry. We're going to assist with this. Again, we use cooperative agreement money and how we guide this and to try to assist them in getting what they need done. We're continuing to work through the details of this and holding conversations with the tag manufacturers, because as I said, as the technology changes, We're going to be looking at other tags. They're going to have to get those tags approved through a system to meet our specifications, but that will move forward. Now, Dr. Frazier, the state vet for Alabama, is going to be giving us a talk on the transition to EIDs and the cost share issues. So he'll go into more detail than I have. So I want to go into a little bit about the ADT General Standards document. So APHIS's ADT staff has spent a lot of time updating this document in order to assure that the quality of the devices are approved. They've established requirements comparable to other countries, such as Australia and Canada. You want my picture? Want me to pose? No, just kidding. Anyway, they're always bad pictures, aren't they? They look like you just got done chewing a lemon. So to move forward, we want to establish requirements again that are comparable to other countries such as Australia and Canada. We want to reduce the length of time for the first entry into the marketplace. We want to expand guidelines to support UHF devices. We want to produce or provide an option for device approval. That's really important for companies having a track record and data for devices used in official ID outside of the United States, because that's always a complaint we get, that, well, they do this in Canada, they do this in Australia, why can't we do it? The revised standards are in process and of a final review by APHIS, to be followed up with a final review by the Office of General Counsel. That's our legal folks. The accompanying revised tag application form requires the Office of Management and Budget to approve the information that we're actually asking to collect. That takes time also. So because of that, we're close to finalizing that process, and we'll have new standards in draft format to potential manufacturers at their request. But again, this will be draft. This will provide the new tag application requirements for manufacturers to begin testing, conducting field trials, and gathering other requirements for compiling their applications. This has been something we've been asked about repeatedly. A little bit about collection of ID at slaughter. We talk about a bookend system. We want to put a tag in an ear at the point of origin or before it moves off the farm. So for that framework to work, we have to utilize a system that is trackable and traceable, and that's not a metal ear tag. We tried to retire metal ear tags. It was a phenomenal failure because it's so difficult, it takes so much time. Many of the tags that came in weren't readable. The numbers wear off. So the collection of ID at slaughter has been important to us because that's the retirement age, the retirement stage, and it's a high priority, and it's a gap that we're currently working on to rectify. We have developed processes to retire the tags that are collected using the mobile information management system again. We've retired greater than 4 million tags so far, and we're working with cold cow slaughter plants to provide RFID readers in exchange for their data. We have 9 that have signed on to do that and help us. So people say to me, well, you're more pilots. Well, we continue to do pilots to find out how to do it better and how to do it right, or whether it's even going to work. A little bit about premises identification. This has been an interesting process. We've had Prem IDs for some time. There's still a resistance to it. Part of it, that resistance, is they've been so difficult to get, so hard to pull down, and people don't understand the process. We want to simplify that. So we're in the process of working on a system that we can put up on our website where there's a map, you check in on the map, you use that map to obtain your official premises ID number. It gets you started for what's needed in your individual state. It's interactive. Different producers can use it. You don't have to be an IT specialist to use this system. It's state specific, and it's a good resource for them to obtain their PIN in a simple matter. Now, we haven't got this up yet, but it's close. We're waiting for approvals to move it forward. Lastly, I'd like to talk about our request for proposal for pilot projects and how that's been progressing. Many of you know that last year we obtained $1 million to use for cooperative agreement funding to support ADT projects for EID use in cattle, specifically the use of back tags, ultra-high frequency back tags. We want to submit an RFP, which will come out soon, either early this spring or late this spring or early this summer, that will basically outline the parameters for people to apply to participate in pilot projects. We're looking for 2 to 5 projects out of this money, so we can look at the cost effectiveness of collecting these key pieces of data and the traceability needs and utilization of these back tags in conjunction with other types of ID systems. So we're going to be looking at how they function, these ultra-high back tags function with other types of RFID and movement and how they can be used at the speed of commerce. So that's kind of some guidelines of what we're going to be looking at. Both states and tribes, industry, and academic groups can apply for these projects. As I said, we'll be getting the information out late this spring or early this summer. That concludes my talk. I do appreciate the time, and I'm willing to take questions if there is time.
A microphone.
Anything difficult, I refer to Undersecretary Eyeball at this time. I know.
I'm Shere. I'm Kyle from Georgia.
I know who you are, Bob.
I want to go on forever. Thank you for this. Thank you for bringing this out and moving forward. This is a big step. And there's one thing I'd like for you to address that you, maybe I missed it when you were talking about. Getting the premise ID is so important, but also the obtaining an AI manager. How to, we need more of those guys, because these people are going to want to be ordering tags, and they need to have access to those AI managers. We talked about the states doing this, but there'll be people ordering directly from the tag manufacturers themselves too, and they need to go through an AI manager. Is there discussion about streamlining how that's obtained, make it easier?
I think we're talking about it. I don't think we have the answers for that yet. But I refer back to the process that we use for the metal tags. We hope that some of that works. We're also hoping that, you know, if you kind of look at how we did scrapey tags through the years, that worked very well. There's a system where we record those, we order those. I don't know if I have the personnel that could sit and take the tag orders and make sure that the state's got them, but I'm hoping in conjunction with the cooperative agreements and how we're doing this that we can work through this in each individual state and make sure it gets done. We're there to help, and we're going to do what we can. You know, everybody's short-staffed, it seems like, but this is so important that we're going to make an effort to make sure that we work with each state and make it happen.
Other questions? Chelsea? Come to the mic.
I probably don't.
She didn't she have a question earlier? She's done, isn't she? Hi, Chelsea.
Chelsea, good.
I know who you are.
I thought you might. So just first, as a point of clarification, and I think I'm reading this correctly, with the timeline and the transition to RFID, we're talking about that currently covered population of animals, correct?
Correct.
Thought so, but just always helpful to clarify. The part that I do have a question about then is, you mentioned, and this talks about the tag should be applied at the time of birth or before the animal moves off the farm in interstate commerce.
Yep.
How does that square with the currently covered component?
I guess I don't understand the question. I think what we're saying is if you're moving that animal, it better have a tag.
I think she's also probably wondering what the role that the livestock auction market
So
putting in that tag initially.
Well,
the second thing I've always read in my mind, almost two things. The animals often in the beef side become covered after they've left that farm of origin at some point. They become covered when they are 18 months of age and older, sexually intact, and moving interstate. And so your first point at which they're covered under the law, it's probably not the farm of origin, so that's half of it. And then the other half of it is, what if it is a covered animal, they're moving off the farm, but they're moving to an approved tagging site? Can they become identified once they get to that approved tagging site, oftentimes a livestock market?
I think that's still in our records, but there's some of these loopholes that we're going to want to close because it makes it difficult to the approved tagging sites. A lot of folks don't understand how that works, and we want to make sure that we're not putting a burden on anybody with our process. We want that to go back to farm of origin as much as possible.
And I think our membership would prefer that animals come in identified, but if they have producers they work with that aren't going to tag on farm, they still want some ability to work with those producers and to partner in bringing them into compliance.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I just heard, we were at breakfast this morning, I heard that 60% of animals at one particular market come in unidentified. These are CFR covered animals that aren't being identified. We don't want to put the burden for the police action of this on the markets. We've got to work together to figure out how to do that. If that means, I know when we go out on a disease trace or anything, we put those tags in federally and on the state side. A lot of them are doing that. So we want to make sure we can help with that. I don't know how we're going to get there 100%, but the other part of compliance is complaint driven. And so we're going to have to deal with those complaints to get the compliance and to get that done. Now I understand that a lot of farms can't put tags in the air. They don't have the facilities. I understand that. So if markets are willing to work with us on that and put some tags in, I don't want that to be a complete burden, but we expect that they show up with tags. And if they don't, there should be a tagging agreement, either with that market or that process is going to happen. Because the next process is when that animal does move interstate, it better have a tag in its ear. Because we're coming not after the market, we'll come after the veterinarian that wrote the eCVI. And then they won't want to. They'll want to do this right. So they're going to press this. I think in the markets, the veterinarians, especially if you got a market vet, he's going to say, "I'm not signing anything until they take tags in their ears because I can't lose my accreditation." So, thanks, Chelsea.
Good morning, Dr. Shere.
Good morning.
Michigan Farm Bureau. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
How's Michigan?
Almost wanted to stand up and do a happy dance back here.
Good for
It
you.
wouldn't be an animal ID discussion at these meetings if I didn't get up and make a comment, I guess. And my comment this morning is thank you. As most people know, we've been dealing with this in a similar structure, similar format for a long time. And I'll make the statement that I've made many times over, it works. And it works because we collaborate. It works because we work through the process. We find a way to make it work. And when we find challenges, we sit down and find ways to work it out. And I firmly believe that when the system is fully implemented, the livestock industry in the United States of America will be better off because we have the ability to track and trace the livestock, help protect animal health, and help commerce continue to move forward. So I think the outline that you laid forward and put out in front of us this morning is exactly the kind of system that we can operate within the livestock industry in this country that will help to achieve the goals that the industry has been asking for quite some time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. I'll say this too, and I think about this. This keeps me up at night. If we, and Undersecretary Ibaugh talked about this, but I want to re-emphasize it. Let's throw everything else, all our domestic programs away about traceability. Who cares? That's in the past, right? Let's just say we don't worry about it. We've solved all the disease problems in the United States. We don't have any more domestic disease. It's great. Why do we need an ID system? I get asked that all the time. If we get foot and mouth disease in this country, or any high consequence disease, nothing moves for a while. And in order to move things and to regionalize and to tell the rest of the world that our products are safe, we have to have an ID system. I can't test and move your animals unless I can ID them. And that's going to be critical when the big one hits, if it hits. Now everybody says, well, we haven't had foot and mouth disease since 1929. Well, we didn't have PED either, and it went through the country rather rapidly. We're getting these viruses, these introductions, which is what scares the commodity groups. We get them all the time. We've had 7 or 8 new viruses introduced in the United States in the last year. How'd they get here? I don't know, but I'm concerned. So I want to be prepared with the system. And Congress asks me this all the time, Dr. Shere, is it time to go mandatory? I get that question. I say, no, it's not. We're working with the industry, we're working with the states, we're getting there. Well, what if we get a major disease? We're getting there. Well, we got a system. It's maybe not be as fast as we want it to be with it, which is what it would be with EID, but we're getting there. So what I would say is I really appreciate the work and the fact that the industry has moved to where they are now. It's amazing how far we've come, and that's not to go unappreciated. I appreciate my staff. They work really hard, and I just wanted to introduce a couple of them. Sarah Tomlinson is here. Stand up. I want them to see you. She's the brain trust. She wrote this talk. I never take credit for what I didn't do. Aaron Scott, where are you at, Aaron? And I'm missing my IT guy. Where is he? Randy? Randy Munger. So those guys work really hard. There's a lot of headaches that come with this program. A lot of negotiation, a lot of listening. But we still got a lot to do. We've got to get out, like we said, and reach these folks. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Dr. Shere, do you have time for one more?
It's up to the monitor here.
One more question.
Tom Jones from Arkansas Farm Bureau, and I almost have to ask this question after all the good comments that have been made, but as a southern cow-calf producer, not quite as advanced as some other states. Let me give you a hypothetical that the industry just doesn't quite get it together. Are you bound by an animal disease outbreak to protect us from ourselves? Or at some point can you say, you have to do ID, get it done, get over all the whatevers, or are you only bound by telling us that after we have the disease?
I'll answer that this way. I've had continuing and extended problems getting funding for indemnity and those types of programs from the Office of Management and Budget because I don't have good biosecurity in some of my programs. I don't have good traceability in some of my programs. So at some point they're going to say to me, Dr. Shere, no, we're not doing that. They won't say that in a major disease outbreak, but they will say it for our domestic programs. I'm already struggling for many of our major disease programs to get that indemnity to deal with our domestic outbreaks. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to say there's dots all over the United States of TB because I can't get funding because OMB won't fund it. That's critical because eventually if I'm the European Union, I'm looking at those dots saying, you really don't have a TB program, do you, Dr. Shere? You've got dots of infection all over your country. I need to clean those dots up. And the states don't want them hanging out there either. So, yeah, it's important that we have an ID system. It's important that we have good traceability, good biosecurity, so that we can get rid of domestic diseases beyond the major outbreak. If a major one comes, you're going to tag everything. It's going to happen. You're just not going to have a choice. So let's get there now and take care of what we have to take care of so that we can continue to trade. It's interesting, and I think this is another thing that Undersecretary Ibas said. We're a major exporting country. We have the poorest traceability in the world. We got to fix it. And you guys are there. We're ready. We just got to get everybody else to go with us. So I hope that answers your question.